from Veronica June Photography. I've had a special request to show you how to stop motion in your photography. Now, the person who requested this wants to pour gravy over some food. So as an example today, we're going to show you that by using water into a cup. I would recommend before you pour your gravy that you practice on water. So first, let me show you my setup. We have a very basic setup here. This is not fancy. This is just for today's purposes. We have my camera here, which is a Canon 70D on a Sirui tripod with a ball head, and we have a glass and we have some water. I have a remote trigger here so that I don't have to try to maneuver holding the camera and shooting at the same time. I can shoot with this hand, pour with this hand. I also have a light on our scene because I want it to be nice and bright, but I'm assuming you already know you want a nice bright scene for your photo. So, the first thing that we really need to talk about when we're talking about freezing motion is the exposure triangle. Now this video is going to assume that you already know all about the exposure triangle. If you don't, go do some homework after this video, and from here till the end, muddle through and see what you might figure out. So how we freeze motion, first and foremost, is with the shutter speed, which is one of the three pieces of the exposure triangle. I have included on my post a little handy cheat sheet that will show you kind of a basic number where you can start with different degrees of action. For water, the starting number is to have your shutter speed around 250. From there, you're going to adjust your aperture, which in my case, I'm using a Sigma Art 18 to 35 lens, and this is a fast lens, so it opens all the way to 1.8. I'm shooting wide open, which means I'm at the lowest number, the highest aperture, so 1.8 is wide open. And then I have my camera set up just the right distance to get the image that I want. Once I've got my shutter speed set, then I'm going to set the aperture, which is the 1.8, which lets the most light in, and that allows me to keep my ISO as low as possible to avoid grain. So my settings for today, because I've tinkered with this before we started, are 320 shutter speed, aperture is the 1.8, and that allowed me to have my ISO go to 400, which will keep that grain pretty low. Now, the idea with shutter speed and freezing action is the faster the action, the faster you want your shutter speed. So for example, when I'm out taking pictures of my kiddo on the soccer field, he's a 5th grader, so he's not very fast. I have my shutter set around 800. If I were going to be out taking pictures of professional soccer players, I would need my shutter speed much faster because the action is much faster. The same can be said for the difference between water or gravy or any other slow-moving liquid. The water moves faster than a slower pouring gravy, so you probably don't need the speed quite as fast for a slower pouring liquid. Now we're going to talk about this. This is a remote trigger. If you don't have one, you can pick one up really inexpensively that's wired. This one connects right into the side of my camera here. You can get Wi-Fi ones, and some of your newer cameras will even connect with your phone via Bluetooth. For here in my house, for a simple project like this, I prefer the little cord. I don't take any time to have to connect it. I just plug it in and it works. I also have my camera set up in fast shutter speed mode, so it's going to trigger one right after the other. You can adjust that on your camera. And if you have questions, ask me in the comments and I will help you figure out how to do that with your camera. But every camera is just a tiny bit different. But you're going to want to set your shutter up so you can go snap, 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 snap without having to push that button over and over. So now what we're going to do is take the pictures. I have preset this up. My camera is just the right distance. I have focused on my glass. And then I have the water here, the glass here, and this is simple as it gets, folks. There we go. Now, when you finish this part, you definitely want to look at your pictures. If you look at them at the back of the camera and they look great, you might still want to put it on your computer and take a look. I don't know about you, but my screen is fairly small, and when I look at the camera, sometimes things look crystal clear. Then I put them in my Lightroom for editing and not so much. So definitely try several settings, take them out of the camera, check them out in Lightroom, then you'll have a better idea for sure what your settings work. Then you'll be ready to go, bring on the gravy. Now, if you have any more questions, you can reach me at veronicajune2@yahoo.com. My website is veronicajunphotography.com, and I have several different blogs. You can learn all kinds of interesting new things. I even have a few stories because I like to tell stories. So I hope you'll check me out, sign up, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.